Hello, welcome to Inside Area 9. I'm Kathy Bridgford and I'm your host today, and I'm with the Area 9 In-Home and Community Services Agency. Today we're going to be talking with Billy Kester. She's the Director of Continuum Care from Reid Hospital. Thanks, Billy, for coming today.
Thanks for having me.
And we're going to be talking about a subject that is necessary. Sometimes it's not the best thing you like to talk about, but it's definitely necessary, and that is end-of-life conversations. Tell me, how did Reid get involved with this?
In early 2014, we joined a collaborative with 12 other healthcare organizations around the nation, and actually one in Scotland, focused on becoming conversation ready and really focusing on what matters at end of life for individuals.
It just seems, when I first heard this, it was like, well, what does that have to do with the hospital? You know, that it got confusing for me. But it is such an important conversation. And so is that kind of the reason that Reid decided to jump on board on this?
It is. Actually, so many people don't have those conversations, and then in times of crises, when they are in a medical event, they aren't aware of what their loved one's wishes are, or are not able to express that for their loved one, and left with dealing with feeling like they're making those decisions on their own without the input of their loved one. So if people have those conversations beforehand, they aren't left with that traumatic decision at the time of the event.
And you know, if you talk to people and ask just general conversation and asked them if they thought it was important to have that discussion, they'd probably tell you yes. But
Yes.
do they do it?
Actually, studies have shown that 90% actually think it's important to have that conversation, but only 30% of the population has actually had that conversation with a loved one.
Well, what about do they do anything about it then?
Actually documenting that in the form of a living will is even more rare, and only about 20% of individuals truly document their wishes in addition to having those conversations.
And you know, do you find that younger people don't do that as often as older people?
Yes, because they don't feel that that's necessary. They don't feel that they're nearing the end of life, so that's not an important discussion or an important decision to be making for themselves. But the reality is, end of life can come at any time for any individual, so it is important to make sure that your wishes are known by your loved ones so that they can express that in the event that something unforeseen could happen.
And you know, especially when you're younger, you probably have less conversations about that, whether you do anything about it or not, but less conversations just because it's not going to happen for a long time.
Right.
And you know, so it would put a family member in a real, you know, just trying to make a decision as to what they think they would want then. So, well, we're very lucky if Reid is only one of 14, did you say?
12, yes.
12, one of 12 that did this. I would say Richmond is very lucky to have Reid do this then.
Yes, I think it's very important that in healthcare, all providers are talking about that, whether that be your primary care physician, your hospital, whomever, that we are educating people on having those discussions and the importance of what that entails.
Well, tell us more about why it's so important to have that conversation.
Actually, the Institute of Medicine did a recent study and found that for individuals who have to make those decisions for a loved one that have not had that conversation in the past, 80% of them developed post-traumatic stress disorder as a result of making those decisions.
Oh my.
So when we aren't having those conversations with our loved ones or making our wishes known, it is very traumatic for them to have to make those decisions on our behalf without any previous knowledge of what our wishes would be.
Oh wow, that's high.
Yes, very.
Makes me think.
Good.
And hopefully our audience as well,
Yes,
right?
yes.
So why does Reid think it's so important to them to have this project?
Because in dealing with patients and families coming in crisis situations, you see that turmoil amongst the family members, and dealing with that is very difficult. It's very important that if they are having that outside of that crisis moment, they feel very confident in making those decisions for their loved one at the time. And it's not in the crisis situation that they're coming to those decisions, but they feel confident that they know what their loved one's wishes are and can express that. It really guides the healthcare team on what the individual's decisions are, rather than the healthcare team making those decisions based on what treatments are available. It's really directed more at what the patient would want the treatment to be, rather than what treatment could necessarily be offered.
I see. Well, how does the process work?
To have a conversation is actually very simple. It's much more simple than we make it out to be often, because no one really wants to face their own mortality or the mortality of their loved ones. So it's a difficult conversation to start. We have used the Conversation Starter Kit from Conversation Project. And that is a guide that guides you through that discussion. And really focuses in on what matters to you, what is important to you at the end of your life, to make that an easier conversation to have with your loved ones. And in doing that, that really facilitates the conversation for you. So first and foremost, the most important thing is that you're talking to your family, you're talking to your friends, you're talking to your loved ones about what your wishes are. But then after that, it would be documenting what those wishes are in the form of an advance directive, so that your healthcare team and everyone else knows in writing what those wishes are and can carry those out for you.
Now, in order to do that, to get an advance directive, is that something Reid can help people with, or do they need to see their attorneys, or can they go online and do that?
Actually, all of the
All the
above.
above? Okay,
Yes.
good.
There is advance directive forms on the Reid webpage, so they can go to the Reid webpage and download that and complete those there. Or they can seek counsel if they would like to have something legally drawn up. They are welcome to do that as well. It really is just dependent on what the personal preference is of the individual.
Okay. So if I had one, say, and I did it with my attorney or online or whatever, you know, I had it, but I'm in an accident and I'm taken to Reid Hospital. How would they know I would have one?
You can have it put into your medical record at the hospital. You can call the Health Information Management Department, and they will scan that document into your medical record.
Okay.
You can also give a copy to your primary care physician, and they can have it on record in their office. Or making sure, again, that your loved ones know that the advance directive is available, and that they have a copy of that to present on your behalf.
Okay. So if you were to go to the Reid's website and fill out the form there, do you keep those on file then? Do you submit them directly to you?
They can actually be emailed to us. We have an email dedicated to that, and that is deciding.together@reidhospital.org. So it can be scanned and emailed. The best probably way to do that is to go through our Health Information Management Department, and they can educate you on how they would get it into your medical record.
Okay. So once you have that in place, is there any other forms that needs to be filled out, or any other types of conversations that need to take place with, besides just the advance directive? You were talking about this toolkit.
Yes, the toolkit really guides the discussion on what you would want to include in your advance directive. It also assists your family in knowing what really matters to you, what setting you want to be in at the end of your life, what do you want family around, who do you want to know what's going on with your health, those types of things. The other important thing I think to discuss would be a healthcare representative. So in addition to a living will, a healthcare representative is another form of an advance directive, and that appoints someone to make decisions on your behalf in the event that you can't speak for yourself. So identifying an individual that you feel confident would portray your wishes as you would wish is another important factor.
Okay. Now, what's the advance directive then?
An advance directive comes in two forms. It can be a healthcare representative, or it can actually be the living will that we were discussing. Either one is considered an advance directive. If a living will is not present, but a healthcare representative is, then the healthcare representative would be consulted to identify what your wishes are
Okay. And can you be any age to have an advance directive?
Advanced directives are typically for individuals who are 18 or older, yes.
Okay. Okay. So if we want to get more information, you were talking about the toolkit. Is that something that the toolkit's actually on your website?
Yes, we have that available on the website that you can download. We also have books printed at the hospital, so I mentioned the email address earlier. You can also email that address, and we would be happy to mail you one if you don't have capability to download that or would just like the hard copy already printed for you. That is available. We have some frequently asked questions. There's lots of questions surrounding end-of-life issues and terminology regarding end-of-life issues. So there's a lot of other material there on the website that you can look at to glean some additional information on making those decisions and give you, kind of empower you to be able to do that.
You know, when you talk about advance directives and living wills, you know, a lot of times it's like, okay, now what was this one? What was that one? It does, because it's new terminology for us.
Yes.
You know, it's not words that we typically use every day, and so it does get confusing. You know, so someone listening today might have it straight with you telling us, but then, you know, 2 hours later be like, okay, now which one was that? It's very easy to get them confused.
It is, and a lot of times they actually confuse living will with the last will and testament. So it's not about your possessions and monetary things. It's about your person and what you want for yourself.
And you know, sometimes people's wishes change as it goes along, depending on their health or whatever. You know, they may have a living will, but then turn around later and appoint somebody else their healthcare representative, because they don't want their loved one to have to make those decisions or something. So, you know, things change all the time with people. So I guess once you have that conversation, you should, I guess, can kind of continue that on.
Absolutely. And that's the thing about living wills, advanced directives, healthcare proxies, all of those are changeable. So it's not written in stone when you make those decisions initially. If you find later down the road that you want to change your mind about something that you had initially said, you can update that advanced directive at any point. You can change your mind about the decisions that you initially made. And, you know, at one stage in your life, you may think that you want everything done. At another stage in your life, you may decide that you don't want to be on a breathing machine. You may not want a feeding tube if you are terminally ill. And I think that's another important point, is advanced directives, whether that be a living will or a healthcare proxy, are only utilized in the event that you are terminally ill and cannot make decisions for yourself. So ultimately, those are guided by you as an individual and your ability to speak for yourself. When you become unable to speak for yourself, that's when those documents or that healthcare representative would be consulted to make those decisions on your behalf.
That is a really good point, because sometimes, you know, as you're younger, especially if you make one up when you're younger, you know, you have a whole different view on it as you age and have a terminally ill, you know, diagnosis. So that is a good point. Now, there's National Healthcare Decision Day. When is that?
Yes, it is actually coming up in April 16th.
Okay.
And kind of ironic, they decided on April 16th as National Healthcare Decisions Day because nothing in life is certain but death and taxes. So it is right after the April 15th tax deadline.
Well, that's an easy day to remember, then, isn't
it?
Okay. Now, are you doing anything for that, or?
We are to increase awareness about advanced directives. We are holding an exhibit where you can come in and actually complete an advanced directive if you do not have one. So at Reid in the main concourse, you can come in and we will work with you to complete an advanced directive, whether that be a healthcare representative or a living will or both if you would choose. And then we will put that into your medical record for you and give you copies that you can take with you to give to your loved ones.
Okay. Now, is there a charge for those?
There is no charge.
Wow, that's good, because attorneys you're going to have to pay.
Yes.
So it's a wonderful opportunity for people. So take you up on that, right?
Definitely. It's
April 16th.
It is a good event, and we do hope that people will come out for that and express their wishes.
Since this is just, what did you say, 2014 that started?
Yes.
So this is very new
It is.
to Reid. So you're probably working really hard to get the information out to people. And
We are, yes.
so hopefully today, people watching it, they'll be educated on it, and because it's certainly something I wasn't aware of. But a wonderful opportunity, and like I said earlier, it's kind of, depressing thing to have to talk about, but it's definitely needed.
And I think that after having those conversations, there's such a relief on the part of the individual and the family members, just because those wishes are known, and you do feel confident that you would be able to express that if you ever had to.
And then you may have families that totally disagree, right?
That is very true, and we do see that, unfortunately, where families disagree, or mom may have had a conversation with one sibling but not the others, and so they aren't confident in the one sibling that's speaking out. So if you have that in writing, that gives the healthcare team some guidance that we can have those discussions with the family members as well, to make sure that everyone is on the same page and doing what's in the best interest of the individual.
Well, at Area 9, I know you came down and talked with our staff, and we're trying to promote it as well through the Area 9 agency, because we have, so many clients that have terminally ill or are terminally ill, or they're just aging, quickly. And so I know our case managers have started taking some of those forms out, not to help them fill it out, anything like that, because that's not the business we're in, but just to try to get them to start thinking about making those,
Yes.
Filling out those forms and making sure they're having those conversations with their loved ones, because it is something that we want to assist our clients in any way that we can, and we feel that this is a good thing to promote to our clients, to start having these conversations. So that's something we've done. I think we were even trying to get it onto our website, some information about it as well, so anybody that would want to contact, is a client of ours, would have that information as well.
That's great.
So we appreciate you coming down to our office, talking to our staff about it, because it's something that our office has never talked about, as far as for clients go. So I'm sure there's other organizations out there and a lot of other that might be able to do similar things.
Yes, actually, we've been approached by several service groups, the Lions Club, Kiwanis, some different church organizations that have wanted this for their group discussions, and we are more than willing to do that as well. I know I personally have done some of those discussions, and some of my colleagues have done those discussions, and it's really well received. You think that it's a very morbid topic and something that people don't want to talk about, but then when you really start discussing that and why it's so important, people do really want more information on the subject.
Excuse me. April 16th, April 15th, Area 9 is going to be at the hospital, because April 15th, actual tax day, is our Money Smart Week program going on at the hospital. So I think my last show we talked about that. And so I'll just put another plug in for that. So be at the hospital April 15th and 16th,
Yes.
2 days in a row, because that's when we're going to be showing the video about the Jamaican lottery scam. And so we will be in Lingle Hall for that. So we hope that we have a lot of people there. But we're getting close to being out of time, and I know you have a video that you brought, and we're going to show that. And the video will have a lot more information about the same stuff we've been talking about, but also some additional information. And also it'll give the website, so if people didn't catch it earlier, they can watch it on the video. So we'll close out now, and then please stay tuned with us to watch your video. And what's the name of the video?
It's Deciding Together.
Deciding Together. Okay, well, I want to thank you all for joining us today on Inside Area 9, and please stay tuned to continue on with watching the video, Deciding Together, for more information. And I hope you have a wonderful day and enjoy the video. Thank you.
We are launching an initiative to help people make decisions toward the end of their lives. We are very concerned that many of our patients are not receiving the types of care that they really want to receive as they near the end of their lives. We feel it's extremely important to ask the questions to involve the appropriate people in that decision. We are initiating a process where we do ask those questions. We find out what matters to the patients, what matters to the people in our community, and we want to do a better job in meeting those needs. Each of us has experiences when a loved one has come toward the end of their lives. I've lost all 4 of my grandparents. I learned how important it is to be frank, to be open, to ask the questions, to find out what people want, to not be afraid of death. It's something we'll all experience. It's something that is going to happen to each and every one of us. It's part of life, and it's an important part of life, and it's something that we should talk about.
Randy and Pam Kirk have a story in our past with the birth of our 3rd child, Brady, who was born with a 2-chambered heart, and we found ourselves immersed in a healthcare environment that frankly we knew nothing about. And in the course of his very whole and complete 5-month life, we found ourselves in one chapter really approaching the end of his life, when all medical miracles had been exhausted, and we were introduced to end-of-life care planning, unimaginable as that is for an infant. It changed our lives really forever, that moment in time. And as Pam and I discussed and contemplated bringing our son home to love him, to hold him, and to be with him in that end-of-life moment, we learned an awful lot about this life journey, and those lessons continue to play out decades later. We came to recognize that a life journey really is not measured by numbers of years, but it's really quality of life. And his quality of life for his very brief amount of time here, that our special angel made a difference in the lives of others. These were things and experiences that led us to our own conversations with our parents, with our siblings, with our friends, but to have the dialogue of what would you like, if you could, what would you like for your end-of-life journey to include?
Almost every day that I work, I do approach a family or a family member, and I say to them, how much do you want me to do here? And frequently in the course of that conversation, I say to them, just because we can do something doesn't mean we always should. Because sometimes a lot of the testing and procedures and things that we do lead to another, which leads to another, which leads to more machines and more life support. And this discussion I have to have all too frequently with family members, and helping explain to them where we're going with things, and making sure I don't cross any boundaries that the patient, who may not be able to speak for themselves, would not want me to cross. And if we're in the middle of a massive resuscitation process, CPR, life support, machines, and I say to that person, how much would this person want me to do? How far do they want me to go? And just last week, this happened again. It happens frequently. They look to their family and they say, please don't make me make this decision alone. And what I try to explain to that person and to the whole family is, you aren't making that decision. That decision has already been made. All you are doing is voicing what you know that person who cannot speak for themselves would say.
As a chaplain, in working with families, I often see children, adult children, who are having to make decisions for their parents they never envisioned making. It's so important that you make this decision and that you document this decision so that your families can have peace in helping you in that time. A lot of life is about planning. Most often, we fail to make plans for the end of life. What will that experience be like? What do we want it to be? When we fail to have conversations, when we leave things unsaid about what we want our end-of-life experience to be, it's problematic not only for us, but for our entire family. So it's important that we have those conversations with the people we love and who would be responsible for our care in the event we would not be able to do that. As you plan for the end of life, and as you have this conversation with your loved ones, we'd like to help. You can visit reidhospital.org/decide, and there you'll find tools that you can use in helping to make these decisions, and a template that you can print to give you the information you might need.